I cannot believe what I just saw. And when I say that I can't believe what I just saw, in a way I can believe what I just saw. Because when it comes to boxing, this is exactly what people are talking about. This is exactly why it feels like the sport of boxing has fallen off a cliff over the past several years. Because it just reeks. It stinks. And especially when you get a fighter like Francis Ngannou coming over boxing Tyson Fury, where I thought Francis Ngannou won. Now you get Rico Verhoeven, a legendary kickboxer, coming into the sport of boxing, taking on one of the all-time greats in Oleksandr Usyk. And it wasn't just the fact that Rico Verhoeven was winning the fight. He was absolutely dominating Oleksandr Usyk. Dominating him. And I like both of these dudes a lot. I like Rico Verhoeven, one of my favorite kickboxers of all time. Oleksandr Usyk, one of my favorite boxers of all time. But we have to call it like it is, man. That was one of the worst stoppages in the history of combat sports. Not just boxing. One of the worst stoppages that we have ever seen. That was terrible. Terrible. And it just feels like it was one of those things where Usyk was getting punked. Like, let's not beat around the bush here. Like, you know how many people out here thought that Rico Verhoeven was going to go out there and win this fight? Next to nobody. You know how many people thought that he was going to go out there and have, like, really any success at all? Not many. And not only did Rico go out there and put on just a sensational performance, but he was beating Usyk at every aspect of boxing, walking him down, beating him up in the clinch, better movement, better defense, better footwork, better volume, better out. He literally was doing everything better than Usyk in this fight. Everything better. And shout out to Usyk for finding the uppercut right in round 11. Lands a beautiful uppercut as Rico's kind of charging in, and it just feels like that's an experience thing, right? Rico Verhoeven, it's like, why are you chasing? Why are you chasing? I thought that he was way ahead of Usyk. Usyk was going to need the stoppage in the final couple rounds in order to get the job done. He needed exactly that to happen, basically, in order to win the fight. Dude, like, how do you stop the fight there? How do you stop the fight? I genuinely don't understand, man. There's like no explanation. And I know people are saying, well, the gum shield came out. So, you know, they gave him time in between and allowed him to recover. So he basically would have gotten the knockout then. You don't know that. He could have dropped him. We could have gotten the count. And then Verhoeven makes it back to his feet. There were seconds left in the round, man. You have to let it go. You have to let it play out. This is a heavyweight fight. Massive stakes on it. Verhoeven was winning the entire fight. And it feels like, in a way, Verhoeven really got shafted here. Really kind of robbed, if you will. And all credit to Usyk for finding the shot, being poised, capitalizing on an over-aggressive Verhoeven who's kind of, was falling over himself a little bit later in the fight. And, it felt like some of the fatigue was setting in terms of, the mental aspect of it, because Rico Verhoeven, man, like, how unbelievable was he in this fight? How unbelievable was he? It looked like these dudes were almost in two different weight classes. Rico's massive. And the physicality, like, he literally brought a fight to Usyk that it felt like Oleksandr was just not ready for. Like, Rico was outboxing him. His defense looked incredible. He was bobbing, slipping, and weaving, making Usyk miss multiple times. Was landing huge right hands. Was shifting combinations and stances and coming in and landing good shots in the pocket. Was weaponizing the clinch. Wearing on Usyk. And you could see in the body language of Usyk, the commentators were like, something might be wrong with Usyk. He doesn't look like himself. It was the weight gain. Excuses. All a load of BS. All the credit is to Rico Verhoeven, man. He looked fantastic. He looked like a seasoned, polished heavyweight boxer in there. And obviously he was doing some things that are maybe not exactly traditional to the sweet science, right? Some of the movements, some of the awkwardness, but the way that he was cutting off the ring, the way he was pressuring Usyk, you could tell he was making him feel very, very, very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. But how do you stop the fight, man? You can't do it. You can't do it in that situation. And I know, listen, that's what makes Oleksandr Usyk so great. He's down, he's losing, and in a way, these are sometimes the hardest fights, right? It's like a quarterback who can, make every single throw in the tight coverage, and then all of a sudden you got a guy wide open and he airmails. It's like, how do you miss that throw? Because it was easy. It was there. And this was like that kind of fight where it's like, well, Usyk's just going to dominate. He's one of the best boxers we've ever seen, basically the best of this generation, right? And it felt like it was a layup. It felt like, well, this is his sport. He's just going to toy with Rico Verhoeven. And Rico gets out to an early start. He wins easily the first few rounds. And it's like, well, okay, maybe Usyk's going to start to pick it up a little bit here. And then we're like, okay, Usyk's not picking it up a little bit here. This is just Verhoeven, and Verhoeven's not slowing down. He's got that spring in his step. He's moving really well. How you stop the fight in the 11th with seconds remaining like that is absolutely insane to me. And then to say that, oh, well, he got rocked so badly and he fell into the ropes. And it was a beautiful shot by Usyk. So all credit to Usyk. And I'm a fan of both of these guys. I'm just calling it from what I saw, man. I can't believe. And it feels like with boxing, it's almost like you're playing a game of Mario Kart. You're just waiting for the BS to strike. It's like you're sitting back and you're like, there's no way a banana peel is going to come flying out over here, right? And I'm going to trip and fall on it. There's no way that a shell is going to come over and hit me. That's how it is with boxing. It's like there's no way that this guy's getting dominated. There's no way that the ref's going to stop a fight early here. And sure enough, it happens. Sure enough, it happens. And it stinks. And it reeks to me, in my opinion, man, because whenever these guys come over, right, we saw Conor come over against Floyd Mayweather, and Floyd was winning that fight a little bit different, but the point is when these guys come over from these other realms of combat, and then they come into the boxing ring, it's almost like this, well, we can't have Rico Verhoeven coming over to boxing, who does he think he is, and come out here and beat Oleksandr Usyk? Like, and then, it's like frustrating in a way because Rico was clearly winning the fight, handedly. Like, Usyk needed a stoppage. Once it got to the 11th round and we're coming into it, I'm like, Usyk needs a KO. He needs a KO, and Rico was just still marching him down, fighting the same way. I'm like, pull back the reins a little bit. Go a little bit more on the conservative side here. Take care of the football. Don't put yourself in a bad position. Don't fumble. Don't throw an interception. You got this thing. You have the game won. But credit to Usyk for getting the job done. At the end of the day, he did what he had to do, showed veteran experience. To me, he looked very undersized in there. And I know that they were talking about how he added on weight, which I think was a smart move to a degree because of how massive Verhoeven was. But maybe that did have an impact on his gas tank because at times you saw Usyk pulling out of range, looking to counter with the left hand. You saw him getting into the pocket, landing some good shots in close. But, it just shows the physicality of Rico Verhoeven. Because a lot of what the commentators and the analysts were bringing up was, the way that Usyk had to deal with Tyson Fury, right? Fury's a massive guy. He was playing the clinch game, getting a little bit dirty in there, right? Kind of hanging on Usyk to wear him down. And it was like, well, Usyk's experienced that before, so it's not like Verhoeven's going to bring anything different to the table in terms of that element. But the way that Verhoeven fought him, man, mixing things up, giving him so many different looks, this was a generational performance by Rico Verhoeven. It really was, because in my opinion, you can't say for sure that Usyk was going to put him out. You can't say that for sure, which is why you have to let it go. There were seconds left in the round. I think Verhoeven makes it to the bell. I'm sure he'd be surviving, covering up. It would look bad. Usyk's going to win the round, of course. Then we come out into the next round, and it's like, man, like Usyk's going to come out like a bat out of hell, marching him down, weaving, looking to land the big shots and put him away. And it's going to be like, can Verhoeven survive for the final minutes and make it through the round? Because if he does, he's probably going to win the fight, right? You just can't stop it like that, man. And it just feels like this. I'm a big MMA fan in the MMA world. I appreciate boxing, the sweet science, but this is this. I'm a casual boxing fan. But this is the stuff that myself and a lot of people are talking about when it comes to boxing. It feels like so many times, whether it's a funny decision, it's a funky stoppage. It's almost like what can go wrong will go wrong in the way of, you're like, there's no way that this is going to happen, because if it did, it would be one of the craziest things we've ever seen. And yet that is a routine thing that happens in boxing, which is not normal, but it is in boxing. It is in boxing, and it just takes away at times, man, from the sweet science and the legitimacy of it, because how you stop the fight is beyond me. How do you stop the fight? How do you stop the fight? And Rico Verhoeven should not hang his head whatsoever. I'm sure he made a boatload of money. I was really happy for him when he got this opportunity. Right, there were those conversations about him going to fight Ngannou and MMA. And I'm sure, and now his name's going to be hotter than ever because, legendary kickboxer. Arguably, I don't even know if it's arguable, the GOAT. Right, he's just cleared out basically the organization in glory. And this dude went into boxing against the best heavyweight in the world. The guy that people are saying is the best of this generation in Oleksandr Usyk, and he outboxed him, walked him down, did everything better than him in this fight. And I know that you could say, well, maybe Usyk didn't kind of look like himself here. I feel like a lot of it was what Rico was bringing to the table, the pressure. It was relentless pressure. He did not allow Oleksandr to have any time to breathe and operate. And Verhoeven, man, even though he lost, it's a horrible stoppage, one of the worst stoppages I think we've ever seen. Easily one of the worst stoppages. And like I said, it stinks and it reeks, in my opinion. It just does. There's no way you can watch that and go, yeah, that was a great stoppage. That made a lot of sense. It just doesn't. Especially in a massive fight. The fact that Rico's literally, he was dominating the fight, dude. It's not like, well, man, we got a close fight here. He was dominating. So, I don't know, man. I like Usyk. I like Rico. It was crazy to see him come into boxing and what felt like no one was giving him a chance. Which, common sense is just going to tell you, he's coming into boxing to fight the best boxer. There's no way that, early, of course, comes out, moving well. He's going to probably win a couple rounds. But then once it starts to get going, it's like Usyk will just take over and dominate. And that never happened. Never happened. So, like I said, credit to Oleksandr. It's not his fault. He was, getting outboxed, but found the shot when he needed to. It was a nasty, I think it was an uppercut, right? Boom, right on the chin of Rico, spun the head sideways, fell into the ropes. The mouth guard comes out, so there's that little pause there, and the coach is fumbling the mouth guard, maybe a little tactic going on there. You have to let that go. You have to let that go. And the follow-up shots, and I know Rico's on the ropes, but the follow-up shot, the last left hand, it looked like it didn't even land. It looked like it went down the middle, but didn't even touch the target, man. So when we talk about boxing just being this funky business, this is exactly the type of stuff that we are talking about. So I'm sure big fights are ahead for Oleksandr Usyk, but after this performance, because a lot of it was what Verhoeven did well, but then there were also some things that leave for some concern when you watch the performance that we saw from Oleksandr coming into this fight. He was the massive favorite, which again does bring in pressure, whether, people say, well, it gets to the fight or it doesn't. It does bring in that element of pressure where you're like, I have to. Oh, there's no pressure on Rico. People think he's just going to get destroyed. So he just gets to go in there and be like, I'm fighting free, which is kind of what happened. And then maybe Usyk's feeling the moment, feeling a little bit stiff, adding on some of the extra weight, not as springy, right? I kind of saw that in his stance a little bit. Didn't seem as springy as normal. Generational performance from Rico Verhoeven. And I think he opened the door for some big opportunities, right? Whether that's going to the UFC, if he could work on the grappling, fight in a heavyweight division, that would add a ton of life. Maybe he just stays in the boxing world because there's a bunch of money. Maybe he does something on a Netflix card against Ngannou. I don't know. There's going to be options for Rico after you put on a performance like that in a boxing match where everyone's counting you out. You're taking on the best in the world, and you don't just go out there and win a round or two. You are dominating the fight. You're going to win. And then we get a funny stoppage at the end, which in my opinion is an absolute disgrace. Rico Verhoeven was cruising to a victory. The referee, awful stoppage. You have to let that go. You have to give him every opportunity. And that's one of those things where I'm sure Rico would say, I would rather go out on my shield than get some sort of funny stoppage like that, especially with seconds left in the round. We as fans as well were robbed of a super chaotic, coming in after that round, coming into the final round, being like, is Rico going to be able to survive? Is Usyk going to put him on him and put him away? So, boxing, man.